Welcome back, Defenders. To start today's video, we're going to talk about Ukraine. That's the focus of this channel. But about halfway through the video, we have to talk about Trump's declared trade war against Mexico and Canada. Here's a preview. It's a terrible idea. But we're going to start by talking about Ukraine. Ukraine strikes major Lukoil refinery in the Volgograd Oblast in a continued drone attack spree. So Ukraine struck another Russian oil refinery, and they're showing no mercy. I don't know how long it's going to take, weeks, months, the rest of the year, but Ukraine is committed to knocking all of Russia's oil refining capacity offline. And we're going to find out together what effect this will have on the Russian economy. Ukraine hits oil plants, crippling 5% of Russia's refining capacity. This is the refinery I mentioned in my previous video. It was on fire and burned for 2 days, and the fire was finally put out, but all operations at this refinery had to cease. 5%, gone in 2 days. And this isn't going to stop. Russia has no way of making this stop. Kyiv drones target more Kremlin energy. Oil export from major Russian ports drops to zero. This is the Ust-Laga oil terminal on the Baltic Sea in St. Petersburg. Ukraine struck this last year and then again recently. And at the moment, it can't pump. It's no longer pumping to export Russia's oil. So there are supply chain issues here. When a refinery goes offline, when an oil depot is destroyed, you can't move from the wells which are still pumping because there's nowhere to store it. There's nowhere to put it. When a refinery catches on fire, the logistics chain to deliver, transport, and store all of this oil and refined oil products is just thrown into complete chaos. So Russia is struggling to adapt in the middle of winter. So here's a recap of the first month, the month of January 2025. Ukrainian drones successfully targeted 14 critical infrastructure sites in Russia. This is averaging one every other day. Among the affected sites was 10 refineries and oil depots, the Kremny EL plants, the Bryansk chemical plant, the Smolensk aircraft plants, and the Kazan aircraft plant. So they're going after aviation, critical components like chips, chemical plants, distilleries, refineries, depots. There's a lot of targets in Russia. And if you can't tell, Russia is enormous, and to try and have air defense assets covering everything, it's just impossible for the Russians. Here's a tweet I really enjoyed I wanted to share with you guys. Long before Ukraine can run out of land, Russia will run out of refineries. Let's do it. Another couple months and we'll find out. How does the Russian economy do without any oil refineries? And here is Russia's response. Russia, for the last 3 years, has been trying to destroy all of Ukraine's energy infrastructure, knocking 80% of their thermal power plants offline. But aside from that, it's just terrorism. Russia unleashes 165 missiles and drones on Ukraine in an overnight attack. Ukraine's Air Force claimed to shoot down 56 drones, but they're getting through, and they're hitting their targets. And it's just terrorism, guys. Russian strike on historical center of Odessa damages about 15 cultural heritage sites. This is the Bristol Hotel in downtown Odessa. This is a city that Russia claims is theirs. This is architecture and culture that Russia claims is theirs. Now, it's not true. This is Ukrainian culture and Ukraine's heritage. This is a Ukrainian city. But Russia is just going to destroy it either way. I'll share a video if you want to see the damage. There's a drone video showing the damage that this missile did in downtown Odessa. These are the other locations of historical significance that the Russians also attacked. Death toll reaches 7 in Russian strike on Poltava. This was a high-rise residential building that the Russians blew up. I'll link a video down below if you want to see search and rescue operations and the severity of the damage when a KH-101 missile slams into an apartment building. This was not an accident. It wasn't shot down by Ukraine's air defenses. It was deliberate. The Russians are attacking residential buildings to kill and terrorize civilians. So I have to share with you the name and face of one of the victims. This is Sofia Yavorska, and she had a deep love for books. She was 9 years old. She was in this apartment building and was killed along with her family. And this has to stop, guys. We have to find a way this year, in the short term, to make this stop. And it's not just Ukrainians being bombed by the Russian military. Russian aircraft bomb flattens nursing home in Kursk region full of its own citizens. On the evening of February 1st, a Russian cab glide bomb hit a boarding school being used to house elderly and infirm Russian residents in the Ukrainian-controlled town of Sudzha. There are videos online. I'll link everything down below if you want to see it for yourself. But here's Zelensky's statement on the Russian military deliberately targeting and bombing the Russian city of Sudzha. This is how Russia wages war. Sudzha, Kursk region, Russian territory. A boarding school with civilians preparing to evacuate. A Russian aerial bomb. They destroyed the building, even though dozens of their own citizens were there. This is a state devoid of civility, and this is an evil that will not stop on its own. But if we act strong and decisively, even Russia can be forced to stop. And this must be done to ensure the world is safe from Russian bombs. So what's happening? And we got another clip from retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. He is Trump's special envoy to Ukraine to mediate talks between Russia and Ukraine. And he is supportive of Ukraine. He is trying to help, doing the best he can in his limited function in the Trump administration. So here is Keith Kellogg's most recent appearance on Fox News, and he indicates that the United States can always increase sanctions on Russia, or at the very least enforce existing sanctions more vigorously.
A lot of people are wondering whether the Trump administration is going to continue to fund weapons in the short term for Ukraine or continue to push Vladimir Putin and Russia with additional sanctions to try to put the pinch on them to get them to the table.
Yeah, and Brett, that's going to be up to the President of the United States, what he wants to do. That's his call, as the leader of our nation. But look, what we see out there and what's happened before with the previous administration, when they had a strategy of as long as it takes as much as it takes, that's really not a strategy, it's a bumper sticker. But when you look at this, let's use the sanctions as a great example, the recent sanctions. If you go on a gradient of 1 to 10, 10 being the toughest, 1 being the easiest, I think when it comes to the sanctions, we're probably only at a 6. But the enforcement's only about a 3. For example, we have sanctioned the Ghost Fleet, not just by the fleet, but by the hulls, the ships themselves. And yet we've really not addressed that because that's carrying almost 70% of the oil, the illicit oil that's going overseas from Russia. That's where they get their money. It's petrodollars. These are the kind of things we're looking at, talking about. How do we apply pressures not only to the Russians and incentives as well, but also to the Ukrainians? We're going to give them incentives and pressure points as well, and give the President of the United States leverage to complete that. And that's what we're doing, and going through the process, talking about it, getting the team on board.
General Kellogg is saying that the current level of sanctions placed on Russia by the Biden administration is only a 6 on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most severe. And the level of enforcement of those sanctions is only at a 3. So there's more the United States can be doing both with sanction enforcement as well as increasing sanctions on Russia. Now I know what you're thinking. General Keith Kellogg, I really like this guy. He can give Donald Trump the best advice in the world. And that doesn't mean Donald Trump is going to take it. Donald Trump is going to listen to General Kellogg, But he's also listening to people like Tucker Carlson on social media. And in the coming weeks, he might just tell General Kellogg, I like Tucker Carlson's plan better. Do whatever Tucker Carlson says. That's the risk we're running, but General Kellogg is correct, and he is giving good advice to Trump. It's up to Trump if he wants to listen or not. Another story I want to mention, the United States wants Ukraine to hold elections following a ceasefire. General Kellogg said this. Now, if this is done correctly, this is not controversial. President Zelensky himself said on the Lex Fridman podcast that if Ukraine can get a ceasefire and real security guarantees, and they can end martial law, then they'll schedule elections for within 90 days. Parliament and the president. So there's some confusion. What exactly does the United States want? Do they want to wait for martial law to be lifted, or are they trying to pressure Zelensky to have a presidential election when the war is still going? Sure, there might be a ceasefire, but Russia violates ceasefires all the time. Here's thoughts from Julia Davis. She's the one who operates Russian Media Monitor. Apparently, Trump wants to arrange a phony ceasefire with Putin. Russia always violates them. And then pressure Ukraine into holding presidential elections, and then dump the whole thing on Ukraine's next presidential administration. Sounds like Putin's wish list. Yeah, I agree. Unless there's real security guarantees that Russia can't just restart the war, then you can't call for new elections within 90 days. Because on day 80 of the campaign, Russia could just attack Ukraine and cause mass chaos and confusion. Russia could bomb polling locations. Russia could bomb schools and hospitals and try and disrupt the election so that maybe some Russia-friendly politician can then say, elect me, I can end the war with Russia. When really that's just code for capitulation. I don't know, guys. This is silly to be focusing on Ukraine's democratic elections while their country has been fully invaded. So let's get the Russians' latest reaction on Kremlin State TV. I want to read for you what they're saying about Donald Trump today. In evaluating plans and intentions of the new U.S. administration headed by Trump, Russia should proceed on the basis of several basic concepts. First and foremost, Trump is a predator. Secondly, the United States was, is, and will remain our main strategic adversary, the enemy of the Russian Federation. On one hand, while building potential communications with the new administration, we should nonetheless keep in mind that their goal is our destruction. Yes, Trump may not act like a bad cop, like Biden. He might act like a good cop, but a cop nonetheless. The goal of the United States is expansion. We see the examples of this in the case of the Arctic. So they're referring to Trump's threat of using military force to seize Greenland. And this is where we get into it, guys. Trump launches trade war with steep tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico. I'm not going to complain about China, but Mexico and Canada. This is insane. And I tried, guys. You can watch my videos for the last 2 weeks. Obviously, I did not support Donald Trump in the presidential election, but I was willing to give him a shot. I've been saying, ignore what Trump has said, even ignore what Trump is saying. Pay attention to what he does. And he did this yesterday, placing across-the-board tariffs on Canada and Mexico of 25%. What are the experts saying? Anybody who has a degree in economics or finance? The dumbest trade war in history. Trump will impose 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico for no good reason. So I'm going to give you the fake reason first, Donald Trump's words, and then I'm going to give you the real reason, Donald Trump's words. Today I've implemented a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico and Canada, 10% on Canadian energy, and 10% additional tariff on China. This was done through the International Emergency Economic Powers Act because of the major threat of illegal aliens and deadly drugs killing our citizens, including fentanyl. Okay, you want to make the case for Mexico about illegals crossing the border or drugs coming across the border, fine. But you can't make that argument with Canada. And Trump even admits it. This was yesterday, and this was today. Here's the real reason why the United States just declared a trade war on Canada. We pay hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize Canada. Why? There is no reason. We don't need anything they have. We have unlimited energy, should make our own cars, and have more lumber than we can ever use. Without this massive subsidy, Canada ceases to exist as a viable country. Harsh but true. Therefore, Canada should become our cherished 51st state. Much lower taxes and far better military protection for the people of Canada, and no tariffs. So the average Trump supporter just is clueless. They don't understand tariffs, they don't understand international trade, they don't understand economics. And what Donald Trump is saying is a lie. We technically do have a trade deficit with Canada because that is more efficient. For Canada to get their oil out of the ground in Alberta, it's cheaper for America if they just export their oil to the western United States. To get it over the mountains into British Columbia, put it on tankers and sail around the world, that would raise the price of energy. It's cheaper for Canada to produce locally and then pipe it or ship it locally into the United States, which frees up oil and energy being produced in other parts of America to be exported, to be shipped to Europe, to be shipped to Africa or South America. So when you break down trade barriers, everything becomes more efficient. Everything becomes cheaper. Everything becomes more profitable for workers and shareholders and companies. So when you increase tariffs, you're just making everything more expensive and less efficient. If you remove oil and energy coming from Canada's west, we have a trade surplus with Canada. Canadians, not counting oil and energy, Canadians buy more stuff from America than Americans buy from Canada. Those are the facts. You can look them up. So here it is. This is what is about to become more expensive for every American. These are food staples coming from Mexico. And an import tariff is paid by Americans. It's not a tax paid by the governments of Mexico and Canada. Importers bring stuff into the country. They then have to pay the import tariff to the federal government. And they can only afford this by passing on the costs to consumers. It's like a sales tax for international purchases by Americans. Everyone tried to warn Trump supporters during the campaign, but they didn't want to understand it, or they didn't believe Trump would actually do this. I didn't believe that Trump actually would do this, and I really should have, but this is a disaster. Everyone has to eat, and everyone is going to feel this. Housing costs are going to go up. Energy costs are going to go up. Food costs are going to go up. And of course, Canada and Mexico are going to retaliate. Canada has already announced 25% retaliatory tariffs on $155 billion in U.S. exports. What this means is American exports will become less competitive. Canada is not going to buy American. They're going to buy more from China and Japan and the European Union. And the same is true with Mexico. If tariffs by Mexico are placed on the United States, then Mexican consumers are not going to buy American products. They're going to buy more from Brazil and South Africa and India, China, maybe even apply to finally join BRICS. Because why not? The United States doesn't actually want allies. So I'm going to play for you a clip of the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau doing the best he can when Donald Trump had already made up his mind he was going to do this, probably months ago.
Beyond that, it will have real consequences for you, the American people. As I have consistently said, tariffs against Canada will put your jobs at risk, potentially shutting down American auto assembly plants and other manufacturing facilities. They will raise costs for you, including food at the grocery store and gas at the pump. They will impede your access to an affordable supply of vital goods crucial for U.S. security, such as nickel, potash, uranium, steel, and aluminum. They will violate the free trade agreement that the President and I, along with our Mexican partner, negotiated and signed a few years ago. But it doesn't have to be this way. As President John F. Kennedy said many years ago, geography has made us neighbors, history has made us friends, economics has made us partners, and necessity has made us allies.
Canada is our ally. They're our closest ally. They're our best friend in this world. And Donald Trump is destroying his own reputation. He's the one that negotiated the United States-Mexico-Canada agreements. This was signed into law on October 1st of 2018 during Trump's first term. Trump is violating his own trade agreements with our allies right now. So why would you ever negotiate or enter into an agreement with Trump when he's just going to violate it in the future for any reason he wants? Donald Trump is a liar. You can't trust him. This is what the entire world is learning right now about Donald Trump. So if you're a Trump supporter still watching the video at this point, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I don't think I can. I gave up trying to convince Trump voters of what will happen in the future. That's what you do during campaigns. You talk about the future. You try and make predictions. I'm now living in reality. I'm living in the present. And we just have to wait for people to start dying. We just have to wait for the economy to crash, for unemployment to go up, for inflation to start going back up. And we know what the real reason is. We're going to be screaming this. The reason is the stupid trade war. And Trump is just going to lie and say it's because of DEI hires or trans people or something. I don't know. He just makes up whatever he wants in the moment to justify his own bad behavior. I can't take it anymore, guys. I really tried. I really tried. I wanted MAGA on our side to help defeat the Russians. And Trump and MAGA and Elon Musk, they're just going to do whatever they want. And I don't know what they want. I don't know what they want. That's the scary thing. In a presidential campaign, you're supposed to tell people what you're going to do, get elected, and then do it. And during the campaign, Donald Trump never talked about taking military action against Panama, military action against Greenland, or starting a trade war with Canada and Mexico. If Donald Trump had said publicly what he was actually going to do during the campaign, do you think the Canadian border states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania would have voted for higher grocery prices, higher building costs, higher healthcare costs? No, they wouldn't have. Donald Trump had to keep it a secret. He lied to get into office, and now we have to live with the consequences. So the markets are closed this weekend. We're going to see the stock market's reaction on Monday. To my international viewers, if you're from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, East Asia, the UK, the EU, help us. For the people in America trying to resist this, please help us. Don't travel to the United States. Don't vacation here. Don't buy American products until Donald Trump ends these trade wars. Because these trade wars are just the first step of this new age of American imperialism. I'm looking for courage. I'm looking for voices of dissent in the Republican Party. And this is the best I could come up with. This is Kentucky Senator Rand Paul stating, tariffs are simply taxes paid by Americans. Conservatives once united against new taxes. Taxing trade will mean less trade and higher prices. I also pulled up a clip of Ronald Reagan. I don't know why I bother playing these clips of Ronald Reagan. No Republican seems to care anymore about their own traditions and legacy of small governments and free trade and open markets and capitalism. But I'm going to play the clip. Here's what Ronald Reagan and Republicans and conservatives used to believe in.
Our peaceful trading partners are not our enemies. They are our allies. We should beware of the demagogues who are ready to declare a trade war against our friends, weakening our economy, our national security, and the entire free world, all while cynically waving the American flag. The expansion of the international economy is not a foreign invasion. It is an American triumph, one we worked hard to achieve, and something central to our vision of a peaceful and prosperous world of freedom. After the Second World War, America led the way to dismantle trade barriers and create a world trading system that set the stage for decades of unparalleled economic growth. Yes, back in 1776, our founding fathers believed that free trade was worth fighting for, and we can celebrate their victory, because today, trade is at the core of the alliance that secure the peace and guarantee our freedom. It is the source of our prosperity and the path to an even brighter future for America. Until next week, thanks for listening, and God bless you.
I don't think any Republicans or conservatives listening to this care anymore. They just blindly follow and support whatever Donald Trump says and does, even when it's against their own self-interest. But it might get darker. Here's the thoughts from Garry Kasparov, an observer of authoritarianism. The constant conflict is the point. To be a big boss, you have to have enemies. You have to tell your followers that only you can protect them. If they don't exist or are weak, create them and pretend they are strong. So Donald Trump is deliberately picking a fight with Canada to get his supporters to hate Canada and to get Canadians to hate Americans. Because that just makes this new wave of American imperialism easier. When the United States military is called to take the city of Toronto or start bombing Canada, Donald Trump wants his supporters on his side supporting his decisions to seize Canada's natural resources, to seize their fresh water and their oil fields and their mineral deposits. This is about resources. This is about empire. It's about control. And every citizen of the world that believes in human rights and democracy has to resist this. I gave it 2 weeks, guys. I gave it 2 weeks. I tried. So there might actually be good news for Ukraine from this scenario. And I did mention this a couple times. If Donald Trump triggers a recession here in the United States, this can trigger a global recession. And the country in the world least prepared for a global recession right now is Russia. So by placing all of these tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China, and then having all these retaliatory tariffs go into effect as well, the velocity of money globally is going to slow down. Markets will become less efficient and less profitable, and people will start spending less. If this happens in the short term, this will exacerbate the Russian economy. The saying is that when Asia goes into recession, North America just focuses on trade with Europe. When Europe goes into recession, North America focuses on trade in Asia. But when North America goes into recession, the entire world goes into recession because that's the size and power of the US economy. A couple more stories for you. Russian troops who refuse new contracts told they're next for Kursk's meat grinder. These are Russian soldiers, maybe they're maintainers, maybe they're support staff behind the front lines. And with their contracts expiring, they're being told you have to renew your contract. Otherwise, we're going to reassign you to a meat assault in Kursk. It's pretty bleak. Let's check in with some of Russia's frontline brave soldiers. And this is the Russian 5th Brigade, receiving a batch of wounded soldiers from the hospital as their reinforcements. All of these Russian men have been wounded. All of them need crutches or canes as assistance to just walk. And they're being sent to the front lines by Russia.
Вот военнослужащие, все с палками. Кто как раненый, у кого руки, у кого ноги. Я глухой, тоже с палкой. Вот он я, вот ребята. Нас отправляют всех сегодня на войну. Вот таких вот.
All of these men are going to die. They're never going to rise up. They're never going to revolt. They're just going to let their leadership kill them rather than resist. Samara region offers record 40,000 bonuses for high-risk assault deployments in Ukraine. Russia's military is offering recruits in the southern Samara region a record 4 million rubles to join high-risk assault squads in Ukraine. Some recruits and their wives cited survival rates as low as 2 out of 50 soldiers returning from recent attacks. The amount of training provided varies between 2 days and 2 weeks. So if you want your wife and kids to have $40,000, then you can sign a contract in this province, get 2 days of training, be sent to the front lines, and die within a week. But your wife and kids, or maybe your parents, will get $40,000. That's how stupid this war is. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Finland announces $206 million military package for Ukraine. Thank you so much to the fantastic people of Finland. Latvia to hand over 100 drones to Ukraine. Thank you so much to the fantastic people of Latvia. Final clip I want to share with you is from friend of the channel, Richard Woodruff. He has an organization called Frontline Kits, and he fundraises for humanitarian supplies as well as military supplies. And he made this thank you video for the channel. A couple months ago, we mentioned one of his fundraisers to fundraise money for Ukrainian defenders to go on kind of like a nice nature retreat in the mountains. These people were all going through rehab in hospitals. And Richard put together this 13-minute video for our channel. I'll link it down below. If you want to watch the whole thing, I think you'll enjoy it. There's some fun conversations with the volunteers as well as a musical performance, which is pretty good at the end. But I will show you the first minutes in which he thanks the channel for your donations.
Come with me to Vidnova. I am with all of the wonderful female defenders and their partners from the front lines of Ukraine, and we are having a little rehabilitation break here in the Carpathian Mountains at MC6, thanks to the wonderful organizers of Vidnova. So, дуже велике дякую to Jake Bro for all of this. This is happening because of your community. So, дуже дякую. We love you. And Slava Ukraini! Heroям slava!
Once again, I'll link the entire video down below. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I think there might be a lot of Trump supporters choosing to unsubscribe from me and stop watching me, but I can't compromise my values, guys. Every day, every video I end with keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy. And it's more important than ever today. till the next video, take care of yourself.